Hey, it's Dean Bokhari, and today we have a Flash Notes TV episode on The One Thing. The One Thing, written by Gary Keller. And the subtitle here is The Surprisingly Simple Truth Behind Extraordinary Results. Awesome book. Awesome personal development book, extremely well written. And today we're going to go over the top three sort of flashes of insight. The top three key big ideas from the book. And if we've got time, I try to keep these episodes at 10 minutes or so to be respectful of your time. I know you want this info fast, so let's just jump right into it. And if we've got more time, then we'll jump into more big ideas. And hopefully we can get all these in here because there are lots of nuggets of wisdom in this book that you can apply to your personal life and your professional life. Okay, so check it out. The main idea of the book is based around this one specific question, which is, what's the one thing you can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? And we'll chunk this question down and we'll explain how it works and why it's so important here in a minute. But what's the one thing that you can do? What's the one thing you can do such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? Okay, you'll want to write that question down because the whole entire book, again, is based around that single question and the power of organizing every area of your life around that one specific thing that you have in each area of your life, your personal life, your professional life, maybe if you have multiple businesses. The key thing is to focus on one specific result or goal. And the best way to hone in on that is to ask this specific question. We'll talk about how to do that here in a second. Okay, and the way that Gary Keller describes it is, he says that the key to success is figuring out your one most important thing in your business, your career, your life over the long run, which you could think of as your someday goal. And once you figure that out, you need to identify how many dominoes you need to line up and then knock down in order to achieve it. It's pretty simple, right? It seems like it, but it's simple, so simple that a lot of people seem to forget that it actually is the most effective thing that you can do for your life, which is simply to just focus on one thing and to harness all your focus until you've achieved that specific goal. And just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy. If it were, then everybody would be doing it, right? And we've all heard that before. So another few crucial quotes that he's got in the book here that I want to just quickly line up and tell you about is, first one, success is sequential, not simultaneous, meaning that everything happens one thing at a time. Another thing he says is focus is a matter of deciding what things you are not going to do. And he cites numerous examples. And by what I mean here is that he talks about people from the business world, like Steve Jobs, where he eliminated hundreds of different SKUs or like models and like products, and just basically honed in and focused on just a handful of products and making those just extraordinary. Okay, another thing he says here is that if you chase two rabbits, you will not catch either one, young Padawan. So keep that in mind here. He also gives another great example of Bill Gates, and I'm trying to pull out these popular examples because everybody knows who Steve Jobs is, everybody knows who Bill Gates is. So let's just quickly dive into this example of Bill Gates and the one thing in action in an actual, lifespan, so to speak. And it starts with high school. It starts in high school when Bill was a kid, right? His one passion was computers. This led him to develop one skill, computer programming. In high school, he got one job, a computer programming job in that specific field that he was passionate about, which eventually then led him to starting one company, Microsoft. Bill's company Microsoft focused on making one thing, the development and sale of basic interpreters for the Altair 8800. This specific product that they focused on making and cranking out and developing and producing and making better and better and better eventually made Bill the one richest man in the world for 15 years in a row. Okay? After Bill retired from Microsoft, he and his wife Melinda formed one specific foundation, okay, that focused on one specific thing, which was to tackle some of the world's toughest problems like healthcare and education, okay? The majority of the foundation's money went to one specific area. And that specific area was Bill and Melinda's global health program, which had one goal: to use science and technology to save lives in poor countries. Okay, to do this, they settled on finding a solution to one major cause of death, which was infectious disease. And the one solution they came up with for that major cause of death was vaccination, because it's the one most impactful thing that they could put their money towards to solve their one ultimate focus, which was to tackle, again, some of the world's really tough problems. Okay, so you see how it all kind of ties together and it just kind of all goes back up to the ultimate goal there. So let's talk about the next big idea here, which is to identify what's most important to you and give it your undivided attention. Okay, he says that a lot of us think that we're multitasking, and our perspective on that is completely off. People say that they're really good at multitasking. This is untrue, okay? And the way that he explains it is what's happening when we're actually doing two things at once is that we're separating those two things in our brain. Our brain has channels, Keller says, and as a result, we're able to process different kinds of data in different parts of our brain. This is why you can walk and talk at the same time. There's no channel interference. But here's the catch. You're not really focused on both activities. Okay, one is happening in the foreground and the other is happening in the background. And if you were trying to, for example, talk a passenger on an airplane through landing a DC-10 airplane, you'd stop walking probably, right? And likewise, if you were walking across a very thin rope from one bridge to another, 20 stories in the air, you'd likely stop talking so that you could focus on not falling to your death and getting to the other side, right? So you can do two things at once, but you can't focus effectively on two things at once. And that's key. And he's got a lot of research to back this up too, which is cool. And so, what he says is many think that because their body is functioning without their conscious direction, that they're multitasking. And this is true, he says, but not the way they mean it. A lot of our physical actions like breathing or being directed from a different part of our brain. So when we breathe, it's sort of like one of those unconscious things. It's being directed from a different part of our brain. We don't ask ourselves, we don't direct our attention to breathing oftentimes, right? Unless you're meditating and you're focusing on your breath. But a lot of our physical actions like breathing are being directed from a different part of our brain than where focus comes from. And as a result, there's no channel conflict, okay? We're right when we say that something is front and center or top of mind, because that's where focus occurs, in the prefrontal cortex, okay? When you focus, it's like shining a spotlight on what matters. You can actually give attention to two things, but that is what's called divided attention. And make no mistake, take on two things and your attention gets divided. Take on a third and something gets dropped. So let's focus on identifying the one most important thing at hand at that specific moment, okay? And not allow ourselves to be divided in our attention. For instance, if we were going through, a surgery of some kind and the surgeon pulled out his cell phone and was texting while he was performing surgery on a family member of yours, that would probably piss you off. I know it would for me. So if we hold surgeons to that level, right, to such a high standard, if we hold professions like that where it would obviously be upsetting or disturbing if this person, for instance, like a pilot or an airline lander, the director, the person that tells them where to land, was texting on the job or texting and driving and things like that. If we hold surgeons to such a high standard, then why are we not doing that to our own work? Is our own work not as important? So you want to ask yourself that question, because every time you allow yourself to be pulled in a different direction, you're dividing your attention. You're literally dividing your focus, which means you can't give whatever task it is at hand your all. You can't be as effective as you know that your potential allows you to be if you're texting or you're on Facebook or you have multiple windows up at the same time. Okay, so that's the second big idea. And the third big idea to close this out is goal setting to the now. Okay, this brings everything sort of together. And he basically says here, by thinking through the filter of goal setting to the now, you set a future goal and then methodically drill down. That's the alarm, guys. Let's start wrapping it up here. So by thinking through the filter of goal setting to the now, you set a future goal and then methodically drill down to what you should be doing right now in this moment. Okay? It can be a little like a Russian matryoshka doll, one of those little dolls within a doll within a doll. And that your one thing right now is nested inside your one thing today, okay, which is nested inside your one thing this week, which is nested inside your one thing this month, which is then, it's how a small thing can actually build up to a big one. Again, you're lining up your dominoes. Okay, so here's how you want to line up your dominoes, and then we'll close it out. Within the context of your professional life, for instance, in this example, then, which, by the way, it's the same in your personal life or any other area in your life, but let's just say that if you wanted to line them up in your business, think about that as we go through this, right? So your first one thing is this following question that you want to ask yourself. And this is a someday goal, okay? This is your ultimate, your highest goal, your highest one thing in your business. What's the one thing I want to do someday in my business, in my professional life? What's the ultimate there? And then from there, you want to say, you want to go down to your 5-year goal and ask yourself, based on my someday goal, what's the one thing I can do in the next 5 years? Okay? And then you want to go down to your 1-year goal. And you want to ask yourself, based on my 5-year goal, what's the one thing I can do in this year? Okay? And then you want to ask yourself, moving on to the next one, based on my 1-year goal, what's the one thing I can do this month? And that's your monthly goal. And then you want to go down to your weekly goal. And you want to ask yourself the same question, based on my monthly goal, what's the one thing I can do this week? Then your daily goal, based on my weekly goal, what's the one thing I can do today? And then right now, based on my daily goal, what's the one thing I can do right now? And you see how it just goes from someday to 5-year to 1-year to monthly to weekly to daily to right now, each being your one specific focused highest leverage activity that you can do. That is the one thing in a nutshell, and it's kind of like lining up those dominoes until you've knocked them all down from today to this week to this month to this year to 5 years, and they all stack up until you've knocked down all of them and you've achieved your someday goal. And that's your Flash Notes TV episode of the day on The One Thing, written by Gary Keller, the surprisingly simple truth behind extraordinary results. To pick up the actual Flash Notes, because there's a lot of big ideas here, if you want to pick up the 6 to 8 page PDF or Kindle version and the full audio version, go ahead and swing on over to getflashnotes.com and you can become a member for only $1 with the promotion that we're running right now, and you'll get access to our growing library of the best business, leadership, and personal development books. And we basically condense those and compress the key core concepts from those books to actionable advice that you can use in your life. So come on over to getflashnotes.com. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm Dean Bokhari, and I'll see you on the next episode.